I know what you're thinking. Yes, this is a little bit too crazy, but it had to be done. It must. People must know, where does basic household appliances lie in terms of the D&D class? Or not D&D, but like just RPG classes in general. I put a couple that I can like think of off the top of my head that are like distinct enough. Right, you got like a knight, which to me is like, you know, hybrid build between like a tank and an assassin. You got an assassin, which is like really fast, stabby, healer / support. Got a tank, got the bard, you got the mage. The bard is kind of like for the weirdo appliances that kind of just like do whatever the fuck. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how we're feeling. First off, burner would definitely be an assassin. Do I need to say very much? Actually, thinking about it, I actually do. Because a burner is the perfect mage. You got like fire spells, defense spells, can create healing items if you really think about that. Like turn a chicken into a fucking healing potion and shit like that. I think that would be a solid mage. Okay, next we got the AC. And well, number one, you can always hear the AC on my video, so shout out AC. Second off, this is the perfect support, right? Like, it's a team player. It's not too flashy. It's not trying to like accomplish like an impossible goal. Like technically you don't need it, but without its support, going through the house is just so much more difficult, right? It doesn't feel like a knight or an assassin because it's not like very offensive. It's not like a tank either because it's kind of frail, but like it's a great support, great healer, all things considered. It's not really like a bard type thing. I think like had to be able to play media to be like a solid bard. Next we got a bathtub, and I said this is like, I don't know. I could see it being like a knight, like in between a tank and a knight. Yeah, I'll put it in knight actually, because it can kind of like change up its role based off of like what's in the tub, right? You can go standard and put like hot water in it, and it can deal like a lot of damage. You put ice in it and give like cool status effects, or if you want to get a little zany with it, you can put like battery acid and become very poisonous. The more I think about it, this just feels like a mage. Like how many like different water spells it has. Because in my head, like a knight only has like a set group of things, and they're all kind of like attack oriented. This can like change up its gameplay depending on it. So I think mage is actually fair for the bathtub. Next we have a blender, and this bitch is definitely an assassin. I mean, come the fuck on. This thing has extremely high DPS, right? Especially when the blade's moving. You got like high blade or go really fast. Shit, you're fucked. And also it's like, it's not really taking hits, right? Because if you were hit with like a sledgehammer, it'd just be destroyed in one go. But like, if it can get like a little bit, like a bit going, right? It can like probably take out like an entire army of slimes, or like the nearby goblin town. Throw one blender in there, and they're fucked, right? Just completely obliterated. Next we have a fan, and to me, a fan is like a weird one. It's not really like a damage dealer, not really an assassin. I feel like it's just a worse like AC if it's like a support character, but I can't think of anywhere else where it would go, right? It's not like very interesting, especially as far as like bards go. I think like if this falls in the category of a bard, you could probably put like, I don't know, like a kitchen sink or a sofa in bard as well. But even then, those are like, you can make strong arguments. Really, the only reason a fan is here, actually, no, a fan has one positive trait over the AC. Two, actually. One, it works without too much power, and it doesn't fucking break every 12 minutes. Because, holy shit, I don't know what it was, but my old house, the AC would just always break, and then we have to sit on it with fans on. So fans actually shore up, like, AC units. And two, they're a lot quieter, right? You're not hearing my fan go on in my videos. You're hearing this big ass AC trying to keep me alive going off. So I think like it has its trade-offs, but overall, like if you're picking a support, go for the AC, you know. Coffee. If you is A coffee machine is the greatest support. It's not doing like it is there simply to buff nearby party members, right? With its consumables, it's not really like a mage, in the sense that like its spells aren't like too offensive. They're kind of just like a defensive tool, or not a defensive tool, but like a supporting tool. It doesn't really have great damage options. I think it's worse than the burner. If we were to put into the mage class, so it doesn't really feel like that. Not really a tank or a bard either. No knight or assassin vibes. Next we have a computer, and I think this is the perfect description of a bard. Not the perfect, but like it's entertaining, right? It can give like good morale. I think access to infinite knowledge and Google is huge buffs in terms of like its power, right? Because it can do practically anything, as long as it doesn't require like it dealing damage. Doesn't really have good or any damaging options. So if you're stuck with a computer, just know that you will be the only one actively participating. But that's like never the worst, right? Next we have a dishwasher, and where'd dishwasher go? I can say arguments for support, right? Like it'll clean your dishes, clean your swords, clean your bows and arrows. But I can also see like solid arguments for the tank build, because it has access to like, no, it doesn't. I feel like it's a great support. Same with the dishwasher. Just actually, the dishwasher could have like cool poisonous effects. Take a lot of abuse, because it's like always like throwing out the towel, so it's used to like being abused. The more I think about it, yeah, no, this is like a solid tank. Next we have the regular fan, and I know I said the ceiling fan is like weak, but them fucking stand fans, incredible night class. It's very defensive in the sense that it has like protection from the blade, and once you get past the blade or the protection, then you have to deal with the blade, right? Like, I'm not saying it's the greatest knight ever, but I'm saying it's like one of the more consistent knights, because you will always know what it will accomplish, right? If it's in its defensive mode, it will just be a defensive piece. You can play off of that. If it's in its offensive mode, it's an offensive machine, and you can play off of that, right? I think its benefits are like greater than like I guess like the bathtub, where like you're not really too sure what it will do in any particular moment, so you kind of have to play off of like the idea that it can do everything when it can only really do one thing. I'm not saying it's better than the bathtub, because the bathtub is just so versatile, but like it has its benefits compared to like literally every other class. Next we have, is that a freezer? I think that's a freezer. Freezer. I'd say it's a solid mage, right? It has one primary spell, that's kind of an ice spell, but it's like all purpose, right? It's good at dealing damage to certain enemies. It can affect like the slowness or weakness. It can withhold like other items, right? Like a freezer plus like bathtub combo is insane. A freezer can like store like fucking carbon monoxide, I don't know, and throw it into the bathtub, and all of a sudden you got a whole house full of carbon monoxide and you're dead. Next we have the fridge, and this is a great tank. Take a lot of abuse. You hit it, it falls over, it has like one big attack, and it'll usually get the one shot. But it's mostly just there, kind of like the walnut from Plants vs Zombies. It'll just take hits, kind of give you control of space. Very nice. Another benefit of the fridge, which I'm sure many people are aware of, compared to the freezer, is that it has two options of temperature control, right? It has the general cool option, which you can put like your consumables that you need like on the go, right? Like let's say the nearby Gandalf the Great gave you like a recovery potion, right? You can't have that frozen, because if it's frozen, then you can't instantly consume it whenever you need, and that's not good. If you're in a scenario where you need your recovery potion, the fridge will always be your best friend, because you can keep it at a cool temperature, not a cold temperature, right? And I think that's That's a big distinction that must be made. Big points to the fridge. Thank you for being the GOAT. Next, we have a heater, and this is a great knight. Good offensive options, although granted it is like a little bit limited, and it does require the enemy getting incredibly close. And it's just a good bulky utility. I think like its arguments for being knight, like I could see knight or tank. Not really feeling healer, not really feeling bard or mage either, because it's not really like a spell, right? It's kind of just like an offensive tool. If it were to be a spell, then you can kind of say like the wind generated from the fan makes it a mage. Huge benefit comes from whenever you're in colder climates, right? Like dealing with the ice wolves or the frost giants. It can kind of clear up the space for you, giving you options to move without having to sacrifice too many item slots for like cloth to ward off the cold climate. Another benefit of this is that it's very small and compact. You can get a lot of these in a very small area or spread them out amongst a large area and kind of get the same job done, right? Because a heater has a pretty strong AoE where it's effective, right? It doesn't reach like diminishing returns immediately, such as in the case of like the freezer, where you need to kind of be like right in it to feel its full effect, and the second you're a little bit away from it, you're not really being affected all that much, right? The heater has good space. And if you're unprepared for the heater, right? Like if you show up to a cold climate wearing too much gear, for example, and you place down too many heaters, or come into battle with too many heaters or whatever, you will run into a couple of issues where you will overheat really quickly. However, if you account for that and either pack accordingly or manage your gear to where when you're near a heater, you're getting the adequate heat, but when you're away from the heater, you're not dying instantly, so you have like a little bit of time. I think a heater is a great option, especially for those scenarios. Next, we have an ironing board, and I really think that it falls into the support class, not because it's bad or because its supporting options are so great, but because it works so well with the assassin iron build, right? The whole concept around the iron build is that it's going to do like a lot of heat-based damage in one fell swoop. And what the ironing board says is, I'll give you an area where you have full control over this, right? If something enters the ironing board location, it will instantly, nearly instantly, be hit with the hot iron, and wooey mama, that hurts. Can help the iron out, but help it do a lot of damage. Super helpful. Although if you're not using an iron, then the ironing board loses all of its value, so it kind of is like stuck in the iron support class, right? But like ignoring that, like just on its own, assuming you have the iron, I'd say it's like an A tier support. Without the iron, it's F tier, and like the iron being so good in and of itself, kind of just carries the ironing board, right? Like the ironing board isn't like in A tier because it makes the iron just that much greater. It's an A tier because it works. It works. It's a dedicated support for one of the better assassin builds in the game. Next, we have the microwave, and I'm feeling mage. It does have like one primary spell, but it's like, no, mage feels fair. It has the microwave attack, right, where it can heat up water atoms and make them do like a bunch of weird shit, right? It can cast fire spells if you put in foil. It can have electricity spells if you put in like a couple forks. You can microwave a microwave and be Mr. Beast. Just so many options to do with like its one microwave like base magic spell that I think it warrants the mage class. If not the mage class, then it definitely falls into the knight class. However, I feel like its distinction from the heater, where the heater only has like a heated rod, which kind of feels like a physical attack with some AoE properties and like a little bit of magic mixed in. The microwave has like one magic, but it branches off into a bunch of different spells, and even like its base attack still deals with magic, right? I feel like a good mage or a good knight would fall somewhere like with like some spell magic, just so you can have a little bit of distance. But microwaves are great for like crowd control, just because of how like big their AoE in the front is. Now, if your enemy, for example, can get behind a microwave on top of one or to the side, the only option is for the microwave to self-destruct, and that can run into a couple issues. You have to prepare for it. If you do not put like enough aluminum foil, sometimes you're just gonna fire and destroy your own microwave. Or if you're readying up your aluminum foil attack for like just pure fire, and you're using up that aluminum foil and someone gets behind it, then you can't put in more foil because you've already like activated the attack, and so you kind of just have to sacrifice the microwave. So it does run into a couple of issues there. It's a little bit, I'd say it's like situationally better, or situationally worse than the heating pad, where the heating pad, like, if you're like, you can't avoid its damage if you're in contact with it. However, with a microwave, you can avoid its damage pretty easily if you know what you're doing. So like, it's a little bit worse against slimes, but like goblins or elves, for example, do fare pretty poorly against it, simply because you can like place like a wall of microwaves, or have like microwaves spaced out with heaters, or like a heater behind a microwave, or one of the forbidden strategies, which does require a couple a little bit too much resources, where you stack 4 microwaves in a formation to where like the blind spots are generally covered. Then you can show up like some of the weaknesses. However, it is still vulnerable from the top, so do with that what you will. It's still a pretty good mage, all things considered. Next, we have a radio, and I don't think I need to talk too much about its bard abilities. It has a nice passive boost it has a variety of effects depending on what it's doing, right? If it's playing like, for example, Thick of It, it will affect all of your enemies with like slowness and possible suicidal ideation. But if it's playing like, I don't know, I don't know, if it's playing fucking Chaperone, it has the side effect of like summoning an army of gay fairies, which can be helpful. Like, it had the radio has like a ton of passive buffs that it can give everyone. And I think where it separates itself from like the support class is that it like also has charisma abilities, right? Like it boosts morale through like external means, not like just buffing your soul or whatever, right? I do think if you could make an argument for it being like mage or support, but it just doesn't feel like that more than a bard, because it's like the perfect bard, right? It can do everything with a much wider AoE than a computer, right? It's a lot louder, and it's a lot easier to aim like where its music is going, right? If you're playing the dogshit KSI song, you can throw the radio out of the way, protect your party, and debuff the elves before they even get to you, right? So yeah, good bard. Here we have the oven, and I feel like it's a tank. I can hear arguments for support, but in the same way that like a cactus is like still a tank, or like how thorns in video games like returns damage, I think an oven is a tank, right? It can sit there for a while, soak up a bunch of hits, and if you ever like puncture the glass, you have glass poisoning, bleed damage does stack up pretty quickly, and you have the heat you have to deal with, right? And the heat that it extrudes is like dependent on like the user. Some people like to turn their ovens up really high, which I personally don't understand because of like the inherent risk that comes with like if they do not destroy the oven, then it's kind of just gonna sit there. It can be like it can get in your way really quickly, or if the door opens, it has the possibility to like affect your party negatively. But if you keep your like oven at like a solid range, like 350, like cookie range, then one, you have a solid tool if you ever get hungry, and two, you're not gonna have to worry about like overheating if you place like too many heaters, for example, next to it. So yeah, solid tank, good tank. Trash can, greatest support ever. It can discard items. Not much needs to be said there. Pressure cooker, or is that a rice cooker? No, that's a rice cooker. I know a rice cooker when I see one. Pressure cooker is solid support, right? I think it's a little bit worse because of its single-use function, compared to like most other supports. Well, not single-use. It's pretty good, but it will only be used to like create food. So I don't recommend putting this on your party unless you're going on an adventure. If you're going to battle, or you know that you're going to get into a lot of conflict, and you can afford the time to like cook your own food, then I would never recommend putting a pressure cooker on your squad. But if you're like really late game and like are one tapping everything anyways, or like you've already outscaled all of the enemies to where like damage is purely like damage just doesn't happen, then bring a pressure cooker. But like for newer like life players, I would say just don't add the pressure cooker. Same thing with the rice cooker. However, rice makes me happy. So okay, so I used to because it broke, have this rice cooker that like when you're done with rice, it play like a little jingle. Oh my god, that always made me so happy. It's so cute. I think Uncle Roger has like the same one. It's awesome. Sewing machine, solid. I can see arguments for support and bard. It does have its own. Okay, let me talk about its capabilities, then we can decide. Has a good like little small attack. It's not the widest range, however, it can be angled to like puncture the enemy. You do need to be extremely close though, so I would not use it for its like offensive abilities. It's just if worst comes to worst, it can like provide some level of damage, possibly take out like a couple lower level enemies, maybe like damage substantially like a higher level enemy. It can create armor, which is like a huge benefit. So actually because of that, like its main identity is creating like armor, new equipment. I'm putting it at the top of support. And actually, while I'm doing this, I'm gonna even everything out. I think the bathtub is top of mage class, followed by the microwave. That's top of bard. Tank. I think this is the best tank. And then it kind of goes like these two are interchangeable. And then the heater I think is better than the fan in most scenarios. Anyways, like creating armor is such like a big buff. No matter where you are in your game or your playthrough, you can always use a new set of armor, right? Like if you gather the magical Zard crystal from the top of Vabaslava, you're gonna want to turn that into a new chest plate. So having a sewing machine and not having to go back to the nearest town is a huge benefit. Because let me tell you, it's like scaling up the mountain is difficult, but worth it because the armor you get turns that mountain into a trivial task. But if you have to go up the mountain and back down, I'd say it's just not a trip that's worth it. So getting a sewing machine on your squad is something that like would be great for early players to rush. I know I haven't unlocked sewing yet, which is why I'm kind of like slow in my progression. I've kind of put all of my stat points into the support cooking class, which is not the worst because like cooking unlocks like the heat skill tree. The blender is obviously phenomenal as a purely offensive tool, but like I think I would have benefited a lot from early rushing the sewing machine. Plus, like having your own identity with your clothing is just so huge. Next we have a shower head, and I can see support. It does clean you, get rid of any like debuffs you currently have. But I think it's like solid as an assassin, right? It does have like one offensive gimmick, I guess, which is where, well, really has like one branch of gimmicks where it like, because of the fact that it like sprays water, its damage and its effects kind of depend on what you put inside of it. Typically players that want to go for damage will go with like the boiling water strategy, which is pretty solid, especially against like enemies that are weak to heat, like the frost slimes or the glacial turtles. I know that those are pretty annoying to deal with, so getting rid of like the ice defense really quickly does have its benefits. Some people tend to go for like the more slowing down build. When I talk about it, this feels more like a mage in the same way as a bathtub. The cold water applies like to certain enemies. Like please don't cold water the frost slime. That's just a bad idea. It's a bad time. But like to most enemies, cold water poses huge debuffs. So it's a viable strategy to just spray them and then go for like your own damage or let someone else deal with it. You can put, again, anything that can go in a bathtub can go into a shower head, so you can get a little bit creative. You can put like gasoline and combo it really well with like an oven that's set really high, or like a heater, obviously. It's a really fun gimmick, and I do recommend people like try it out if you're ever just bored. But like, if you're trying to win, I would personally just stick with like hot water. It's a little bit difficult to master as well, because like depending on like the environment, you physically cannot use the cold water in a hot climate. It's just not a fun time. It's just a bad idea for everyone involved. Don't do it. Metal sink. Now this, it doesn't have the same benefit as a bathtub in the case that it's like really fucking big, and it's like worse than the shower because it can't like spray the water everywhere. Like you don't have control over it. So it's like a support, but it's a really like, it's an okay support. Like washing your hands has like a number of benefits, right? It makes food, like any debuffs that you have attained will no longer like affect your food, which for a lot of players is like the reason that they lose the playthrough. But that's kind of like its whole thing. It can clean like plates, and again, the bacteria is like not terrible, but it's like, I don't know. If I'm adding something to my party, I'm going to like, it's such a popular thing to have like in settlements anyways. So I don't think that you should waste your time like adding a sink to your party, especially when there's so much better things. Like a sewing machine is not everywhere. So I would always give up my my support slot to a sewing machine over a sink if I could do it again. Next we have a hand mixer, and I could see it being like a knight, right? I was gonna put it into support because generally like food related artifacts or food related party members do tend to just fall into the support side. However, like in the case of like the fridge or the oven or the burner and the microwave, like just because you have to do with food doesn't mean that you are stuck to playing a supporting role, right? Like you can have good supporting capabilities, and I think providing something positive to the party outside of your primary, I guess, role is always going to be important, right? Like if the oven did not have like the passive of like being able to cook food in the same way as like a pressure cooker can, I think the oven would be a lot worse, right? If it was just a hot rock, it's quite literally just a heater. But because of like, you know, it's bleeding effect because of the glass in the front and the heat, you know, it's up there. Anyways, the mixer, you can kind of like customize its outer bowl, which is like its whole primary niche. The fact that you can like change the type of defense you have to hide the offensive tool inside. And also another nice thing about the mixer compared to like the oven, for example, is that you don't have to wait for the defensive part of it to break before you go on the offensive. Now, I would not say to go on the offensive if it's being attacked, because unless you need to protect, like let's say you're using like a rarer bowl, and you just really need to save the durability, I would never recommend going in offensive mode with this, because you want enemies to be distracted with this. So then the blade spinning it like underneath, like depending if you put it into like, you know, pizza mode or just like general bread mode, whatever, can like chip down the enemies. It's really, I think it's best into slimes because they are like a lot easier to mold. But like, if you customize it, get a little creative and put like, I don't know, a fucking gun on the end, you can find like a lot of cool success. I think there's some players that are like really talented with it, who will make the stand mixer look like an S tier. However, I do think it's just like worse than the fan because of how low it is. The fact that it like only really excels versus slimes and is like below average on everything else. Like there's reasons to use it. Like if you're going through like the open fields, for example, like I'd say if you have the room, bring it, but like I'd never like recommend it outwardly with no nuance. Next we have the top of the stove, and I think it's an assassin. It has like extremely high damage fire-based offense attacks. It can chip down like a lot of health really quickly, or like severely injure like an enemy, right? Like for example, if they go for like a punch or a charge and they run into this, there will be grave injuries that will not go away very easily. It's a great attachment to turn the oven from like a solid B tier to an S tier, because now it has like an option to just like one shot certain enemies. Good assassin tool. However, I do think it's a little bit worse than the blender because it is confined to the oven space. It's kind of just like an anti jump the oven tool, right? Where like one of the primary strategies getting around like the oven or the microwave, for example, are just to go over. If you go over, you risk taking like damage to where you would have taken less damage if you just like destroyed the oven anyways, right? So I think it's like good like rush deterrence. Yeah, good assassination tool. Next we have the lamp, and it's good for support. It keeps the creepies away, and certain monsters that like only lurk at night that like you need to farm or you need to stay away from. You can see them generally after they see you, but being able to see them like ruins a lot of their primary balancing, right? Whereas like they're weaker or do less damage or are slower, but you can't see them until they like get a hit off on you. I could see like tank build on certain lamps, but I think generally lamps are just like supporting options. I think it's a little bit like depending. It's like worse, like same-ish level as an AC, right? It's like an S tier at night. No, not even. It's like an A tier because you can like generally most people have like a flashlight or they have like a campfire. If you have like a heater going, you have like a little bit of light. It's not a lot, but it's still something for like especially like observant players. If you have like, you know, like a relic, like an iPhone on you, like you have a flashlight, or if you just have ears or like a dog, you will know something's coming for you. But if you don't have any of those, like a lamp is like a good option. However, like again, generally most players, I just say carry a flashlight. I think houses are pretty good with a lamp. As far as like furniture goes, S tier, but like in general, it's kind of just like mid. Still like has its uses. Actually, I'm gonna put ironing board above a good portion of these. Actually, no. Just put it like below the fan. Cell phone or dial phone is. I think it's like D tier in everything, but if I had to give it like, I'd say it's like a support. Generally for morale though, more than anything, like calling like having communication to like friends no matter where you are does a lot for your moral score. So like for example, if you're feeling lonely or just like like no one cares about you. Call a friend. Your friends care. Your friends love you. So having that like tool with you is nice. However, it doesn't do anything better than an iPhone. In fact, it does things objectively worse because you need an electrical outlet, which is sometimes a problem for certain objects as well, but their benefits are so much greater than the phone, where the phone's only benefit, or the dial phone's only benefit is that it does what the iPhone does, but worse. And so I ask you, why would I ever use this? And the answer most people say is, you won't. So it's D tier. It's not like completely useless, and it's not like an active detriment, but like generally just don't. Next we have a TV, and it's a solid tank. It can like disrupt the enemy, kind of like give like, it has the illusion of a lot of HP simply because of like the perks it has, right? Where it can like show a movie segment or like a news clip and cause the enemy to get engaged, or possibly spread a new or not new, but like recently like researched debuff called misinformation to the enemy, which will cause them to become like really stupid. It's good with that, and again, that kind of like, it makes its bulk like misleadingly high, right? Where like players who know what they're doing will claim that the TV is like the best thing in the game because it's just broken, right? Like if you don't deal with the TV, then your damage is just forever hindered. And if you do deal with the TV, then you have to deal with like the debuff that comes with like most electrical big screens. It has the bleeding effect like the oven. It has like possible electrical surges. It's kind of a one-time use item though. So if it gets damaged, you kind of have to get a new one. Yeah, that's kind of just how it is. However, there are like cheap TVs that are pretty effective. Like they kind of just do the same thing. But if you want like a wider area effect, like for example, if you want to cover like the sky, then you would have to get a taller TV. Anyways, like pro players will like preach that this is like the best thing in the game. It's like unstoppable. It makes every strategy like, it turns the fucking stand mixer strategy from like a C tier, you can do that but only with slimes, to an A tier strategy where like, yeah, no it doesn't. It really doesn't. It just makes what's like really good. Like it makes the blender surprise attack, it makes the heater debuffs. Like it just makes them good again. Or not good, but just like it does make them slightly better if you know what you're doing. And if you don't, you're just wasting your slot. So like TV's like, it's really hard to rank these, right? Not these in general, but like specifically the TV, because it's an S tier in the hands of like a professional who knows like the meta, knows the exact ways to navigate. But like for the average player, sometimes they'll fall into their own debuff, and that's terrible. So like some people it's F tier, some people it's S tier. And that's like not the same thing with like literally any of these. Like there's some that will deal like damage to yourself, but like just don't touch the hot stove. Yeah. Next we have a toaster oven, and it's kind of like the worst parts of a microwave combined with the worst parts of the oven for like one really shit mediocre mage tank hybrid. Like I know what they were going for, right? Like a really quick fast acting oven that can do like microwave things with like without magic, but it still does rely on magic to get most of its damage. And then it has like weird supporting abilities as well. Like some of them can be like a timekeeping device, which is cool I guess, but nah. So I don't really know where to rank it. Like it's the bottom not even like the bottom of the barrel. It's like okay, but like never like a thing that can actively like be recommended by anyone to anyone in good faith. Like if you have it, like you will technically see benefits, but like having it is generally no better than just using a microwave or an oven. But I'll put it in like mage because it is technically like more magic based and it's less durable. But again, right, it's just a tank mage hybrid that's like mediocre at everything it does. Toaster's a bit of an interesting one. It has like, it's like a knight build that requires it to be broken to do any damage. It's not necessarily tanky, but if it is damaged, it will deal like substantial damage. It has a really cool interaction where with the bathtub, where if you throw a toaster, like sacrifice a toaster's life, by throwing it into a bathtub filled with generally water, not generally, it only works with water. But if you throw it into like a tub of water, then you can like one-shot pretty much any enemy, which is a really fun way to cheese out like especially the level 480 boss at the top of what's the one mountain in Hawaii that has that boss? It's like the fire one. It's got the big hands. Lava comes out of its mouth. It's really funny. If you place down like one bathtub, it can't break it in one hit, and as long as you can time it well, throwing the toaster in there, you just one shot it and you get all the EXP. You can go from level 0 to like level, like I think the math works out to like 231, accounting for like the EXP you lost by not going through all the stages. It's still like a solid way to farm. Depending. If you don't like playing the game, you just like farming, then it's funny. It's still funny. But anyways, Toaster kind of feels like a niche knight with some funny interactions. Toilet is the ultimate supporting character. It keeps your entire base clean. However, like it depends, right? Like technically you don't need a toilet. Technically you can do without, but like most people tend to just utilize a toilet in like a nearby stand. No great offensive abilities, and it only really buffs the party by not making you go to the nearest town. So it's like thinking about it, it's like a worse, or it's better than the phone but worse than pretty much everything else because it doesn't have like too unique of a function. It kind of just lets you do what you're already doing, but in a designated place and a little bit cleaner. Like it keeps your water supply fresh, but that's not even true in some scenarios where the water filtration plant is either damaged or like under attack. So there's that. Next we have a vacuum cleaner, and it has a really cool like suck ability. I've seen professional player Luigi utilize it to deal with like ghosts, whereas you would normally need like Avenge Blade or certain like spells. He actually utilizes a vacuum cleaner because of its ability to like control the wind, and since wind is one of the very few things that can actually like impact a ghost, he just traps it inside of the vacuum, and it's really cool. I recommend like a lot of people checking it out. He used it to get a new resting place, his mansion, if I recall correctly. So it's really cool in that regard. So it kind of has like an assassin build, but it's only really good versus ghosts. Other than that, like it kind of like instantly falls off. Like it has no notable damage. Can't really like affect the terrain or spacing. It's really awkward without ghosts. But like if you're going to a place with like a lot of ghosts, I think it's a great assassin tool. But if you're not going into a place with a lot of ghosts, or if you are just going to avoid ghosts in general, like ghosts aren't an issue if you're trying to like actively avoid them, right? They're only an issue if you're trying to fight them, because they're generally easy to run away from. Like They usually you can only capture a ghost on like fairly terrible footage because they're just so quick to run away. They don't like to be seen. And if you're in like a group of like generally sane people, ghost sightings go down drastically. So I'm pretty sure that they just avoid crowds, which they're just like me for real. But like if you're going into a place with a lot of ghosts and you just need a like a way to easily one shot, you don't feel like sacrificing too many points into magic, or you don't feel like investing in Vengestone, then get a vacuum. It gets the job done. But I would recommend watching Luigi's tutorial on it, because if you don't know how to use it, then you might just end up getting yourself possessed, and that would suck. Next we have a waffle iron, and this is the greatest. It takes what's great about the top of the stove and compacts it into like one little thing. It's great for like a quick clamp attack if you want to like render one of the limbs of your opponent useless. However, it will never one shot, so it's not a great assassin tool. It's a great if it's not a great assassin tool, then what would it be? It's not necessarily a tank. It's not a knight either. It has no defensive capabilities whatsoever. It's not a mage. It's not like a support. So I guess it's just like it's forced into the assassin role because it fits nothing else phenomenally. It's a great tool to like limit your opponent's options. If, let's say, for example, you're fighting the forest tree spirit, right? And you know that its left root attack is really hard for you to defend, and you just want to or you know that you won't be able to defend against like all of its root attacks, and you just want to focus on like one side. What a lot of people do is just take the waffle iron and like clamp one of the sides of the tree, and then you just don't have to worry about that one side. You can purely focus on, generally like people just do the right side because the left side is a lot easier to dodge to, and in general the left root is the closest one to you. However, like if the right one's closer, people tend to go for that, but it doesn't really matter because they're not too far away to where it would matter which one you hit, because the waffle iron just activates so quickly. But a lot of people use that to cheese out like higher level trees with like minimal effort, and I think it's pretty cool. So it's like an assassin, but I think it's like the same level of niche as a vacuum. Like, I'd only carry this around if I was trying to like farm trees, and really, I wouldn't really, cause like the reward, like they have like I don't know, they're so beneficial. Like in general, like they're not necessarily like a bad thing. They have a nice little buff where they remove like poison from the atmosphere and give us like oxygen. So I think that's a cool like trade-off. But if you really need to farm trees, then bring this along. But I like same thing as the ghost. I don't think that it would come in handy. Or if you want to like let's say for example you really struggle versus like left hand wielding opponents because they're just so rare. You can carry a waffle iron around with you, and if your opponent tries to strike at you with their left hand, then you can like disarm it fairly quickly and only have to focus on the right hand. However, against those people, I don't think that you're getting your waffle iron back, so don't miss and make sure that you get it, right? Like if you don't, then you just sacrificed an item, you sacrificed a party member, whatever, for a now useless and gone item. Finally, we have the drying machine, and I think it's fairly good for fabrics, but it combos nicely with the washing machine's passive, where it can clean clothes. This one can dry them off, so if you, for example, you fall into like a river and you're in like a colder area where having the water affect you is actually like a really, really bad thing, you can have the drying machine on deck, on standby, and kind of utilize its passive. So it's niche. It's not the greatest, but I think it's better than these. I think it's like marginally better than these because they kind of just do what an oven can do with minor benefits. I think the rice cooker should be a little bit higher. I think it's worse than the trash can though, and I'm gonna put the trash can actually like really high put the trash can like right here. Put the coffee pot. I think it's like probably like same level of usefulness as a sink. Yeah. Dishwasher, I'm gonna move below the ironing board simply because like dishes can't, like the dishwashing ability can be used by a sink. It'll just speed up the process. But it's kind of actually, now that I talk about it, like it's kind of just like worse dishwasher or worse sink because it only has that one unique function. But that's the tier list. Let me know what you agree with. I know that some of these takes were like a little bit they require like a lot of nuance to rank. But I think generally this is a fair tier list. Especially for me. I consider myself a casual. Maybe a professional player would rank some of these in like different spots. Like I can see arguments, especially from like the more skilled community, where a mixer is just a tank because you use it because of its like deterrence ability, and then its offense is just like a side benefit. Or like where the toaster would be like a support because its ability to heat up bread is more valuable than like what it can provide ever offensively. But like, nah, it has the fun gimmick. So yeah, that's the tier list. Thank you for watching. Again, let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, or whatever. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.